Hello, and welcome to the Preparing for a Flood, Get Covered podcast. My name is Sheila Johnson Parker, and I am a licensing manager for the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking, better known as DISB. Today, I am excited to host and present another informative podcast in our Insurance Intelligence series. As with all our podcasts, you will hear from knowledgeable people in the field and learn about actionable tips and strategies to help you prepare for or quickly recover from an unexpected flooding event, and understand flood insurance coverage and what you can do to reduce premium costs. Now, let's jump into our Prepare for a Flood, Get Covered podcast. Please join me in welcoming back Ms. Angela King, a policy analyst with the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking, also known as DISB. Ms. King has provided her expertise on homeowner, automobile, and business owner podcasts before. I am delighted to have her back. Welcome, Ms. King.
Hi again. Thank you. And please call me Angie.
Okay, Angie. You can call me Mrs. Sheila Johnson Parker. No, I'm just kidding. You can call me Sheila. Angie, for those who are new to the podcast series, please tell us a little bit about your insurance career.
Well, I worked in private insurance industry for about 5 years as an insurance administrator and have spent more than 20 years as a government insurance regulator. As a regulator, I analyze, research, review, approve, and implement many types of insurance policies, programs, concepts, or trends, and make recommendations from the findings. I currently serve as a property and casualty analyst for DISB.
Wonderful. I am sure you have valuable insurance information to share. So let's get started. What do you hope our residents will take away from this podcast? And why is this podcast important?
Well, first, let me say that I applaud the department's efforts to produce this flood preparedness podcast as a part of their Insurance Intelligence series. This is a great outreach project to empower, engage, and inform the DC community about the importance of flood coverage in a convenient way. Let's face it, everywhere that it rains, there is a possibility of flooding. The podcast will provide useful insurance information to help residents protect and sustain their financial interests and investments.
Yes, we produced this podcast to provide answers to many questions and help residents prepare and protect their interests and remain safe in the process. Are you ready to get started, Angie?
You bet.
We get a lot of questions about the definitions of a flood. What exactly is a flood, and how is a flood defined for insurance purposes?
The Federal Emergency Management Administration, FEMA, defines a flood as an overflowing of a large amount of water beyond its normal confines, especially over what is normally dry land. Did you know that just 1 inch of water could cause thousands of dollars of property damage?
No, I did not. Why should a district resident purchase a flood insurance policy, and how can they obtain one?
A flood policy is usually purchased as a separate standalone policy. A standard homeowners or renters policy does not cover a flooding event. The same person who sells your home or auto insurance can offer flood insurance. Also, you can contact an NFIP direct servicing agent who is familiar with the National Flood Insurance Program at 1-800-638-6620. They can provide information and referrals through the NFIP Insurance Provider Locator. It is a good idea to plan ahead because there is typically a 30-day waiting period for an NFIP policy to go into effect and provide coverage. That NFIP number again is 1-800-638-6620.
Am I required to purchase a flood insurance policy if I have a home or business that is located in an area that floods?
If you are a homeowner living in a flood zone and have a mortgage, your mortgage lender probably will require the coverage as a financing condition. There may be other instances where it might be a requirement. Anyone owning or renting property or operating a business should consider purchasing flood insurance for their protection and peace of mind.
Well, who is eligible to purchase flood insurance coverage?
Business owners, condominium unit owners, renters, condominium associations, owners of buildings during construction, and municipalities for city buildings and property are all eligible to purchase coverage.
Is the federal government's flood program the only option for flood coverage?
You can also purchase flood coverage directly from an insurance company. The waiting period could be shorter, and insurers may offer different coverage amounts and different policy provisions. In this podcast, our focus is on the Federal Emergency Management Administration's National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, and the policies they issue.
Thanks, Angie. That is very helpful. What is covered in a typical NFIP residential flood insurance policy?
The NFIP dwelling form offers two types of residential coverage: building property and personal property contents coverage. Building property coverage provides up to $250,000 and personal property contents provides up to $100,000. Coverage can be increased. Building coverage protects your home's structure, plumbing systems, built-in appliances, permanently installed cabinets, bookcases, carpets, wall paneling, detached garages, and foundation walls. Contents coverage protects your personal belongings such as clothing, furniture, and detached electronic equipment, curtains, washers and dryers, and portable window air conditioners, and microwave ovens and throw rugs. Certain valuable items have a sublimit up to $2,500, such as original artwork and furs. This is by no means an exhaustive list. One special note: an NFIP policy will cover the increased cost of bringing your home in compliance with building code upgrades. Additionally, water intrusion prevention and protection techniques, as well as cleanup services, are covered.
Angie, can you tell me a little about flood coverage for a business or commercial concern?
Of course, Sheila. An NFIP business or commercial policy will pay up to $500,000 for direct physical damage to a building and up to an additional $500,000 for damage to business property. Building coverage includes flood damage to floors, walls, ceilings, plumbing, electrical systems, and HVAC systems. Contents coverage would include furniture, fixtures, inventory, machinery, equipment, and other property owned by your business that has been damaged by a flood.
Do NFIP policies have certain exclusions?
Great question, Sheila. As a matter of fact, yes. There are several common exclusions in both residential dwelling and commercial NFIP flood policies. For instance, damage caused by moisture, mildew, or mold that could have been avoided by the property owner is excluded. Damage caused by sewer or drain backup, unless the backup was caused by flood, is excluded. Also excluded from coverage are currency, precious metals, or valuable papers such as stocks, certificates, property outside of your building such as landscaping or septic systems, and business interruptions.
That seems fairly straightforward, but what exactly is a business interruption?
A business interruption occurs when, for example, a home daycare business or music recording studio experiences losses due to a flood. In this case, a flood policy will not offer coverage that replaces the lost business income.
Well, let's get to the bottom line. How much does an average residential or commercial flood insurance policy cost, Angie?
Everybody has that question. An NFIP residential flood insurance policy costs on average about $700 to about $1,200 per year, according to FEMA. The cost can vary depending on factors such as your home's age, construction, or whether you're in a flood hazard zone, and the type of coverage, the kind of policy, and the insurance company you choose, among other variables. A commercial policy can cost a few hundred and as much as a few $1,000s annually.
Angie, I heard you mention a flood hazard zone. What is a flood hazard zone?
Flood hazard zones are geographic areas that FEMA has defined according to varying levels of flood risk. The zones are depicted on a community's flood insurance map.
How do I know if I am in a flood hazard zone?
Good question. A good way to figure out whether your property is in a flood hazard zone is by reviewing a FEMA flood map. The map shows each community's risk of flooding. The flood map identifies specific flood zones and their boundaries. Simply go to floodsmart.gov and enter your address on the flood map. Each zone reflects the flooding severity or type of flooding that can occur in a specified area.
I am sure our listeners want to know how they can save on the cost of a flood policy. Do you have any tips?
There are a few ways you may be able to lower the cost of flood insurance. You can increase your deductible, install sensor devices, or elevate your property. This is also a great question to pose directly to your insurer or agent.
And for those of us who may not know, what is a deductible exactly?
A deductible is the amount of a claim that is absorbed by the insured or that becomes the responsibility of the insured. Most residential flood policy deductibles start at around $1,250 and can go up to $10,000 or higher. These figures may vary between NFIP policies and a policy issued directly from an insurance company. Typically, the higher the deductible, the lower the premium.
Angie, this has all been really terrific information. If listeners would like more information about flood preparedness or coverage, where can they go?
The DC Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking is a great resource for flood information. Homeowners, renters, and business owners can get all kinds of information from DISB by visiting our website at disb.dc.gov, by calling 202-727-8000, or by emailing us at insurance.bureau@dc.gov.
Perfect. Well, it's time for us to wrap up. Angie, you have shared some helpful, actionable information for district residents in our community. I hope everyone took good notes. Thanks so much for your time, Angie, and thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in.
It has been a pleasure, Sheila. Thanks for having me. Allow me to provide an important disclaimer. The information shared in this podcast is for general information purposes only. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as legal advice for an individual case or situation. You should consult an attorney, a broker, your agent, or insurer for questions about your coverage or for professional advice.
Well, that concludes DISB's Insurance Intelligence Podcast, Flood Preparedness, Get Covered. I hope you enjoyed the segment. Remember, for specific questions about your policy and coverage, you should contact your insurance agent or broker. If you have general questions about insurance coverage or have a specific concern, call the DC Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking at 202-727-8000 or email us at insurance.bureau@dc.gov. We are eager to assist you. You can also visit us on the web at disb.dc.gov.